So this week we're talking a little bit about attribution. I wanted to start with kind of a problem that's been coming up with a few of my clients, which is feeling like they need to have a certain number of leads after a couple of weeks of LinkedIn ads in order to prove the ROI of their investment. So why is it not a good idea for B2B businesses to only focus on leads acquired when determining the ROI of their LinkedIn ads?
That is a good question. And one of the things I think is that people don't really see the difference in all the different marketing tactics. And so they judge them a lot the same way. Most businesses are built on cold calling, cold emailing, cold outreach. It's very transactional. Even Google ads, like you're targeting bottom of the funnel traffic, people who are literally searching for you. So early on, I think startups or companies kind of get used to like, okay, I spend this and I pretty quickly should see some kind of monthly transaction, X is spent and amount of leads. But you start getting into longer term tactics like creating demand generation. SEO is a good example, organic content, building a community. And LinkedIn ads is the same way. It's a long-term play. It's not as transactional. These people haven't, they're not actively searching for you. We haven't seen any signal that they're actively in the market. So we're targeting people that are most likely to have a need that you're best served to help, but it does take time to kind of get those hand raisers, build that interest, and then nurture and convert them. So early on, focusing on leads, you just need to be realistic. I would say it takes time. I don't expect any leads or conversions in the first 30 days. And even in the first 60 or 90 days, unless you have other things going on in your marketing ecosystem that is allowing LinkedIn to get to a positive ROI really fast. A lot of times the first 90 days is just kind of gathering these intent signals, building up your retargeting audience before you can even get to a place where you might be able to see break even or a positive ROI. So early on, I wouldn't focus on the amount of leads coming in. You should focus on, are we reaching the right target demographic? Are they easy to reach? What's the cost of reaching them? And kind of focus on some of those leading indicators first.
Yeah, one of the areas that I bring up with my clients too, but the whole targeting demographics and understanding who we're reaching is a big piece of that. Something else that I bring up with my clients are those, what we kind of call micro conversions, or people who click on your ad and visit your website. Maybe they don't book a call the first time they visit your website, but that's something that we can bring them into our retargeting pool.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. So in addition to the cost per click and the click-through rate, like things that I look at before I start seeing leads, yeah, eventually you should start seeing those intent clicks or those micro conversions. But that's also, yeah, something that's really good to set up and track.
Mm-hmm. And when it comes to setting up and tracking those micro conversions, what do you kind of like to include in your conversion tracking on LinkedIn?
Yeah, so for LinkedIn conversion tracking, the biggest mistake sometimes I see is people just don't track far enough down the funnel. So usually they're tracking like if someone submitted the form fill on their website, they can see that, it sends them to a thank you page, they can track that as a conversion. And then usually that's about it. That to me is really scary because you can really start to chase the wrong information. Like if you have two different campaigns, one gets 10 leads and one gets 5 leads, they both spent the same amount of money. If that's all you're tracking, then you would put, you'd probably cut off the campaign that only got 5 leads and you double down on the one that got 10 leads. But if you were able to track call bookings, you might see that the one that had 5 leads actually booked 4 calls and the one that had 10 leads only booked 1 call. And now because you weren't tracking far enough down the funnel, you've completely misstepped with your next advertising push and you're going to see diminishing returns or really terrible returns. So I would say go as far down the funnel as you can. Form submissions are a good start. Booked calls are even better. And then purchases are the best. So even in an enterprise environment where the solution is $10,000 and they're paying through ACH, you can still have an onboarding process where the intake form pushes them to a thank you page, like a welcome page that only paying clients would ever see. And then you would be able to show channel attribution if some of your ads touch that person who then ended up on your company's welcome page. So I'd say form fills, call bookings, purchases, if possible. And then, like we said in the previous question, I would set up intent clicks. So if your pricing is on a separate page, if the contact us is on a separate page, each of those separate actions that lands them on a URL that you can kind of use as a checkpoint, that's the best way to set these things up.
Yeah, those unique URL redirects are something that I've been talking about with a lot of my clients recently too.
And it's not that easy. It's not that hard to set up. Like I am not a web designer by any means, but if it's with most website builders, they make it pretty easy. If you have a thank you page for your form submissions, literally all you have to do is you duplicate that page, change the message slightly, change the slug, the URL that it's going to like call booked confirmed. And now you have a call booked confirmed page and you can send traffic to there. And the same with purchases. So I've done that for a lot where I just simply duplicate the page and I have these different unique landing pages for different traffic. And it also really helps with conversion tracking. There's a couple other tricks like that, but it's not that hard if you kind of poke around.
Yeah, I've been learning there's a lot of kind of tricks and creativity that goes into developing like marketing attribution and understanding where leads are coming from, because, you know, they go on this whole journey before they end up doing something like booking a call. And it's really important to understand what those key touch points were that they hit before, you know, they ended up making the big conversion that you were looking for.
Yeah, that's true.
So aligned with that, there is a lot of discussion that I'm seeing in the B2B community about how much attribution is too much attribution. You know, a lot of companies really want to get really detailed with their attribution and understand where their leads are coming from. But at what point do you think spending that extra time on attribution becomes detrimental?
It's a good question, because I think people can go two different ways. I've seen people get extreme with attribution and it can be unhealthy. I've also seen people kind of not care about attribution and kind of just making their assumptions and trusting their gut. And I think that's equally scary. So to me, I went all the way to the extreme of being probably as obsessed as I could with attribution before finding a happy medium. Because obviously when you first discovered digital marketing, I feel like you want, or as a business owner, you want as much of the answers as you can. You want the data. You want to know, if I spend $500 on Facebook ads, what did I get out of it and how do I know? So the first thing I would do is I would fight for channel attribution in each channel, set up the best you can, your ability to track conversions. But the main problem with that is that even if you have great channel attribution, they're all taking credit for some of the same leads. Like someone might have seen a Facebook ad and then visited your website, got retargeted with a LinkedIn ad, and then went and Googled and started searching and came across a Google ad that they ended up converting. Each channel paired separately thinks that they had, that they claimed that conversion because they touched that client, sent them to the website, and then they eventually converted. So you'd have to get an additional piece of software that connects all of your channels to be able to kind of sift through that data. And that's helpful because it does tell you that those different, kind of exchanges happen. There's really expensive software like Oribi. That was one of my favorites. And they will show you, hey, the first visit from this client was 18 months ago, and they've been back to your website 52 times. They've been exposed to 37 ads on 4 different channels. And here was the first touch, and here was all the middle touches, and here's the last touch. And I think at least once in your life as a marketer or as a business exec, you should be exposed to that. You should know that it's this complex journey. I think that's helpful, but I couldn't continue to pay $800 a month for Oribi because after I kind of like realized that it was all connected, I mean, there's no good way to like masterfully put that together other than just knowing that your channels are working together. It's not like you can gauge, okay, this is going to be their first touch, and then I'm going to hit them with Facebook, and then I'm going to hit them with these. You just kind of create these parts of the ecosystem, and they kind of touch and influence organically in different ways. And it's different for every prospect journey is different. So I feel like go the route of getting exposed to the information, discover heat maps. When marketers discover heat maps and that kind of stuff on their website, and they can see the recorded journey, like I know that's really fun to do, but ultimately, usually it just kind of reinforces things that you already know, which is these things work together. It's a little more complex than I could probably boil down scientifically for each and every lead that comes through. And the biggest things to me is channel attribution and then self-attribution. So I want to know what the channels are taking credit for. I don't care that they're kind of taking credit for the same, because I do want to know that they had a touch. I'm just going to know overall they're kind of overestimating. And then I ask every single call booker where they heard about us. And so I pair my channel attribution with the prospect's self-attribution to give me kind of an overall idea of what's working, what's not working. Because if Facebook ads isn't claiming any leads and no prospect is telling me that Facebook ads was an important part of their journey, maybe that's a channel I need to consider dropping or reducing. But if LinkedIn ads is something for us, I would say a ton of people say LinkedIn organic and LinkedIn ads, and my LinkedIn ads shows that it's resulting in that many conversions, then that paints a pretty significant picture for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I liked what you mentioned going back to the kind of marketing ecosystem or this content ecosystem, because it really helps visualize the idea of like you're creating this content and it's meant to live organically outside of, this specific journey that you expect your customers to take. Because like you said, at the end of the day, you can't drive somebody to go down, find us on LinkedIn, see this ad, see this Facebook ad, go on YouTube and see this, whatever video, and then all of a sudden make a call booking. Like that's not an expectation we can have with the buyer journey. So I love the idea of the ecosystem. And I think that's something that a lot of people are adopting these days in B2B.
Yeah. And I do know there does seem to be another push for attribution. I think there's cool software that's coming out like Hockey Stack. I think they're doing a great job for us. So I feel like the best case, like if you really want to go down deep into attribution, it's probably because either I do think it's good to experience that at some point, but then I know there's a lot of marketing departments that struggle to prove the power of some channel to their leadership or to prove that they're all connected. Like the leadership thinks it's all SEO and Google, and they don't realize that like all those brand searches are actually being influenced by what we're doing over here. So if you do need like, that kind of advanced software to show more of the journey, to get more buy-in from your leadership, that's honestly a really good way to leverage it. But I almost feel like I think the attribution was probably, or more detailed attribution makes more sense for B2C. They're working on such thin margins, and even shifting like a tiny amount of budget from one platform to the other, or knowing what ad creative to double down on that actually drives revenue, that's a little more sophisticated, I think, and need for those details that maybe B2B needs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I have seen too, I think a lot of B2B marketers or executive leadership in B2B kind of see that need for a detailed attribution in B2C. And I see a lot of people talking about wanting to assign a specific dollar amount to every piece of content that they put out, or be able to say, this gave us, X% of our leads acquired this month. And if that goes out to every piece of content that is required for every piece of content that goes out, then eventually, your content team gets bottlenecked and they can't release new content because they're getting told by leadership like this didn't get as many leads as we wanted to last month, so we don't want to keep releasing content in this specific area.
Yeah, that can be really tough. So I often think like, so I'm the founder and CMO here. So I'm in the fun position as I don't have to justify any new marketing initiatives that I run or any budgets. But I often think like, so say I had a boss and I had to justify any new either time or money investment into marketing channels. I don't know how I could justify my YouTube channel, but I really believe in it because on paper, it only results for 2 to 3 leads, maybe a month. And usually 1 or 2 of those will close as a really high close rate if they say they came from YouTube. But it's not generating enough attributable pipeline to justify the amount of time that I've spent investing in that, or the amount of money that would take for another company to have carved out what we have. We only have 1,530 or 40 subscribers and maybe 200,000 channel views. So 1,500 isn't that much, but I know beyond, and this is me being like a spreadsheet kind of nerd, like I know beyond what the spreadsheets and attribution is telling me that YouTube has been an impactful part of the path for many of our prospects, whether, an attribution tells me that, or enough clients tell me that there's been enough conversation, or it just being in existence and that attributing to people trusting us more. There's so many things that are hard to measure. And I think that would be one that if I had a real job, like I don't think I could justify the amount of time I spent creating that YouTube channel that I 100% believe was worth the effort, even if attribution won't say it.
Yeah, YouTube is a big investment for anybody, but I will say too, from the account manager standpoint, I send links to our YouTube videos to all of my clients in almost everything that we talk about, and that has become a key point of them understanding our strategy for LinkedIn ads and like what our approach is. And sometimes it's easier to link them to an existing resource, so the fact that those resources live forever, I would say YouTube is very valuable to me too. Yeah. But I agree, it's a lot of work to get a YouTube channel up and running.
Yeah, not easy.
Not easy.